Hi everyone, my name's Ryan and I'm one of the physiotherapists at Coalville Community Hospital. These next series of clips are going to be videos taken from my shoulder rehab program. It's designed for anybody on the waiting list, or if you've already had a couple of shoulder rehab sessions, for you to continue these at home. I would strongly advise that if you have a new shoulder complaint, that you seek some advice from your GP or physiotherapist prior to engaging in these exercises, just because this is a more higher level rehab program and some of these exercises may not be appropriate for you at this moment in time. So normally I would do a quick shoulder warm-up prior to starting the exercise circuit. Normally pretty flexible on these warm-up exercises, and you can pretty much do what you want as long as you're warming the general area up. But just to give you an idea of some of the things that I would do in my class, so I would do some chest closing and opening, and just rotate as you go through. I would also have my elbows by my side, bringing my hands apart and really trying to open my chest as I do so. I would also do some thoracic rotations, getting round as far as you can each time. I would also do some circles with my arms, going clockwise and counterclockwise. So I would start big and I would slowly make the circle smaller. And then again, I would just swap the directions at which I'm going, and anything else you could do. So you could do some boxing type movements, relatively low level. You could do throwing and catching with a partner or against a wall to get your coordination going. Anything you can think of really that's relatively low impact, low intensity, and that's going to gear you up ready for the shoulder class. So this first exercise that I'm going to show you today is just going to be an external rotation exercise for the shoulder. There's many different levels and there's many different ways you can do this with lots of different types of equipment. But probably the most basic level that you could do this, especially if you're engaging in the shoulder rehab class, would be to lie on your non-affected side. Have the affected side's elbow on your hips. Make a fist and slowly rotate your arms to neutral and slowly bring it back down and relax. And repeat. As that becomes easy, or as you want to start to push yourself further, you can add a weight and do the same movement. Make sure you're going through the full range of movement, nice and slow and controlled, both up and down. A really good external rotation exercise for the shoulder is you will need a TheraBand or resistance band for this. You can either get these from Amazon, or you may have some around the house from some previous physiotherapy or from during your one-to-one sessions, or which you may have received in the post during your telephone consultation. What you want to make a loop in the band, hands in, elbows tucked into the side, they remain there, make sure they're not coming out as you perform the action. You want to be nice and relaxed in the upper shoulders and the neck, and you just want to stretch the band outwards, opening your chest, and then slowly bring back to neutral. Things you want to look out for is that if you've got a shoulder injury, you might see some alternative movement patterns. So for argument's sake, you might not start to notice your shoulder coming up, your elbow coming up from the side. If this starts to happen, just try and correct yourself as best as you can, or try and move through a reduced range of movement. If you're unaware that this is happening, I would strongly advise you complete these exercises either with someone videoing you in front of a mirror, just so you can get that feedback and correct without us being there. So as a progression from the banded external rotation, you can add this to be completing it through a range. So it's the same principle as last time. You want your elbows tucked in by your side to begin with. This time you just want some tension in the band, a good amount of tension in the band, and then you want to lift and raise your arms above your head as far as you can, and all the way back down, maintaining tension in the band throughout. And when you come back to your side, just relax. If you've not got a TheraBand at home, or you can't get hold of one, you can complete a similar exercise by using a towel. So it's the same sort of principle. You can hold it in the same sort of manner, pushing out and coming back up. If you find that that's too irritable for your shoulder symptoms, what you can do is a very similar exercise but in a lying position. You should find that this lying position will be a lot less provocative of your symptoms, and you should be able to tolerate it a lot better. If you can't, again, I will just take it back a step to just either doing banded rotations in neutral or the sideline ones. Okay, so this next exercise is called a shoulder press. You can do it with or without a weight. I would suggest trying it without a weight first to get a feel for the movement, and then trying it with the weight later. Essentially, all we want to do is to bring the weight up to the level of the shoulder. We want to keep our elbow, wrist and shoulder in a line as we're going through, and we just want to press it vertically up, making sure the weight's not coming forward or it's coming behind or to the side. You want to keep everything in neutral and everything in line, and you want to bring it slowly back down again to the starting position. If that's too irritable, again, it might just be that the weight that you're lifting is too heavy and you might need to knock it down. If you need to regress it any further, then what you can do is, if you are lying down with a couple of cushions propping you up, you might find the exercise a bit easier. You'll also find it a lot easier as well in the lying down position. So in this lying down position, similar sort of principle, but this time you'll just punch it straight up in front of you and all the way back down again. So the next exercise I'm going to show you is going to be a front and lateral raise. This is again targeting the deltoid muscles that are sit on the top of your shoulder. So for a front raise, you just want to literally raise it straight in front of you to the level of the shoulder and bring it nice and slowly and controlled back down. Lateral raise, same principle, coming out from the side. You just want to lift the weight up to the level of the shoulder and then slowly back down again. Pitfalls for this type of exercise and things that you should be mindful of when completing the exercise is that you want to make sure that the movement is coming from the shoulder purely, and you only go to 90 degrees. For the front raise, what you might find is that there's a weakness or a pain in the shoulder. You might notice that you start to tip backwards to get that range up and back forwards. That's something to be mindful of. If you find that you're really struggling to not do that, you might find that standing flat up against the back of a wall will aid you in just giving you this feedback as to where your back's swaying. And again, for the lateral raise, you might find that your trunk starts to just tip laterally, again to get you that same amount of extra range. Again, as I explained in the other videos, what you might find useful is either getting someone to video you or using some mirrors for feedback to make sure that your technique is correct. And again, if you just need to regress it, just lose the weight, reduce the weight and do the same movement. So this next exercise is called a shoulder shrug. Again, usually performed with weights, but you can try it without it to begin with if you need to, and build up to adding some external weight. The principle of this exercise is really simple. All you want to do is have a weight in either arm and you just want to shrug up and down. Throughout the movement, again, you want to make sure that your shoulders are sitting quite level and they're not rolled forward, or you're not hyperextended. You want to be somewhere in the middle. You want to make sure that your shoulder blades remain relatively close together throughout. Again, that will guide you, so you want them relatively close together and you just want to go all the way up and down. Make sure when you come down and you relax that you're fully relaxed, because sometimes a lot of tension in the middle and upper trapezius can contribute a lot to the pain in your shoulder. So make sure you're engaging these muscles fully through the exercise, but then when you reach the end of the exercise that you fully relax them. So this next exercise is an elbow curl. You can either do this in one of two ways. You can either do a bicep curl as you know it, which is where your palm is facing up with the weight horizontal, and you just want to have your elbow by your side and you just want to bring the weight up to your shoulder and then slowly back down again. The other kind of elbow curl is the hammer curl, and all you do is turn your palm to face inwards, and you want the same principle, elbow by to your side, weight to the shoulder and slowly back down again. Again, things that you're looking out for that hitching of the shoulder, and you're also looking out for that hyper extension to get you the rest of the way. It's an exercise you should hopefully all be familiar with. What I would do is I'll start you from a very early stage press up and progress you through to a more advanced press up. In terms of where to place your hands, you can do it either way really. The more narrow grip you have, the more you'll bias your triceps, and the wider grip you have, you'll bias your pec and a lot of other muscles a little bit more. So just to simply start against the wall, have your hands on the wall, roughly at shoulder height, and you just want to slowly down to the wall and push yourself back up. Again, to progress this exercise, just take a few steps away from the wall. You'll find yourself putting a lot more weight through your shoulders, and just repeat again and push back up. If you really find at this point that you're struggling to put some weight into that affected shoulder and you keep wanting to offload onto the non-injured side, then what you can do is put yourself in a position with the non-injured side just a little bit higher, and as you go down into the press up, you'll find that all of a sudden a lot more weight is on that affected side. To progress from the wall press up, this is a little bit low, but you can use something like a kitchen counter or the back of a sofa and just do it off a lower surface, and it's the same principles again. Nice and slow down and push back up. Once you're comfortable with that, you can progress to a 4-point kneeling press up. So your hands and your knees are in contact with the bed or the floor. And again, just slowly down, push back up, either wide or narrow grip. To progress from that would be the prone press up. So hands and toes in contact with the bed or the floor. And it's the same again, all the way down, all the way up. If you wanted to progress extra from that, just put something wobbly underneath your hands. It could be a football, it could be a cushion, just something to give you a bit of perturbation that's just going to make that exercise a lot more challenging. This exercise is a shoulder proprioception exercise. Proprioception is essentially the feedback that the brain gets from the joints and some of the surrounding structures that essentially tells the brain where the joint is in space. It's an essential part of recovery from any injury, but particularly so in the shoulder. A good way to train this system is by giving all those sensitive structures that provide this feedback lots of information all in a short space of time. So using something like a Swiss ball against the wall causes a lot of movement and perturbation of the arm, which sends lots of signals to help this system really kick in. So you could use a Swiss ball and you just want to put your weight through it. The ball's going to want to make your arm wobble all over the place, but the idea is that you want to try and keep the ball as still as you can under constant pressure on the ball. To make it harder and to progress it, same principle as the press up, you just take a few steps further back so you've got more weight going into the ball. I understand a lot of you at home won't have a big Swiss ball like this. You can either invest in one online on Amazon or eBay, or there's many other household items you can use. So you can use, if you've got a football in the garden or a basketball, you can use a doubled up pillow, or you can use a half filled hot water bottle, which will provide that same level of feedback as you need. Exercise, you may have heard it being called a farmer's carry or a suitcase carry. All you want is a nice big heavy weight in your affected side's arm. If you've not got access to a kettlebell or any heavy weight, then a bag for life or a backpack filled with heavy bottles of water, tins of soup, beans, etc. will be absolutely fine. So all you want to do is get in the starting position. You want the weight in your hand and you want to try and have your shoulders relatively level. And then what you want to do is you want to walk with the weight to a point and then stop and repeat. And one of the things you want to be looking out for is this shoulder dropping, which means that you're not engaging those rotator cuff muscles very well. So you just want to try and bring the shoulders to the level. Or if there's a weakness there, particularly what you'll notice is your side bend to the other side to try and keep the weight up. These are things you want to try and avoid. Again, having someone film you or walking towards a mirror is a great way to get feedback on this exercise, as it's practically impossible without it and you won't be able to correct yourself. So feedback is key for this exercise and keeping the shoulders level and make sure there's no lateral tilt of the trunk. Any issues completing the exercise, as always, you can always reduce the weight to a lighter weight, and if you want to progress it, just increase the weight. This exercise is called a row, and the position I want you to get in is either use the sofa, use a chair, use the side of the bed, anything, but I want the weight or some sort of weight in your affected side. And for your non-affected side, I want you to find yourself in this position for me. And again, all I want you to do is lift the weights up and then slowly let it drop all the way down. And you want to focus on, when you're coming down, you want your shoulder blades to really follow it around with you. And when you're coming back up, you're really trying to get the shoulder blade as close to the centre and meeting the spine as far as it will go, and then slowly back down again. And repeat, like so. Again, if you're struggling for a weight, bag for life with some heavy objects in it, rucksack with some heavy objects in it, will do the exact same thing. And as always, either progress or regress the weight as you can. although for this exercise, you should be lifting a considerable weight that you can comfortably tolerate. This exercise is called a lat pull down. Unfortunately, out of all the exercises that I've showed you today, this is the only one that absolutely essentially requires a resistance band. Again, you can either get them from somewhere on the internet, or you might have some from your physiotherapist from previous physio. For this one, what we want is we want to tie a knot in the end of the band. We want to loop that knot over the door frame, shut the door, and make sure that the door is secure. Make sure that there's not a big threshold gap, otherwise the band's going to come through and it's going to hit you and you'll know about it. And make sure the door is firmly shut and no one is likely to walk through on the other side. Usually your front door or back door is a good one to do. Now what you want to do is you just want to wrap the band around your hands a couple of times, 2-3 times. Obviously the more you wrap your hand around it, the greater the resistance is going to be. And all you essentially want to do is just pull down, back up, pull down, back up. Again, you're looking to engage your big climber's muscle, your latissimus dorsi. Again, to make it a bit harder, just take a couple of steps away, lean over so your arm's more above your head. And it's that same movement. Again, you're the boss. Once you get into this position, make sure the band's not pulling you in. Make sure you've got control throughout, and it's a nice, controlled, smooth movement.